Spencer Bowman is a well-established business owner, breeder, obedience trainer, and protection dog trainer. Over the last 12 years, he has perfected his craft and continues to grow his list of accomplishments. He is the only American to date to qualify for the French selectives with a self-bred and trained dog. He qualified for the French selectives out of 2,000 plus dogs down to 240-ish with an average score of 374 out of 400, out of 5 trials. He has trained and assisted numerous teams in Mondio and French Ring. He is the proud owner of Prestige Canine and Prestige Protection Dogs. Please welcome Spencer Bowman. Thanks for joining us, everyone. Today on another episode, I am here with protection specialist Spencer Bowman, and we're going to be talking about protection dogs as well as sport protection dogs. So thanks for joining us today. I really appreciate it. First question, how would you define a protection dog?
Hey, thanks for having me. So protection dog is, for us, is a dog that's friendly and social with family members and also can do the protection work that's needed to protect their family, protect their home. There's protection dogs, there's estate protection dogs, family protection dogs, personal protection dogs, different kind of variations of them, and depending on which dog people go with can kind of determine, how social that dog is or what their job specifically is. But for us, it's the first and foremost thing is that the dog is very friendly and social, but can also turn on in real situations and protect their owners.
That's perfect. And when getting a protection dog, you like to start from when they're a puppy, or do you start when they're a little bit older?
Yeah, so we typically start, any protection dog can definitely be started as a puppy. Obviously, it's a lot better if you start as a puppy. We don't tend to select our dogs that are going to go into actual homes until they're a little bit older. To give you an example, we might raise 4 or 5 puppies at one time and then determine later when they're a little older, 6 months to a year old, if they're going to have the right temperament to be a personal protection dog. Because the temperament is so important to us, we're looking for quality over quantity. So we're definitely looking for those special dogs that have the right temperament. And with puppies, you just don't know sometimes. Sometimes they're, very social and very good as a puppy, or, and then they get older and they have, little quirks or problems. So we definitely start the work when they're young, but we're going to reevaluate them when they're older and determine if they're going to be a good fit for our program or not.
Now, do you breed your own puppies for your protection program, or do you get them from certain breeders that you have a good relationship with that has a high probability of producing a dog that's going to make a really good family or personal protection dog?
So I do have a breeding program, Prestige Malinois. We typically don't, most of our puppies aren't suitable for what I would consider home protection, just because the drive level of them are a little bit more intense and a little bit more suited for the sport work, which we'll probably talk about later. But so we definitely do have some of that come through our breeding program that we'll place in protection homes. But as a whole, most of them are typically geared. Our breeding program is more geared towards the sport aspect of things, and we typically go to other breeders for more suitable dogs for home protection. Also, we typically like the German Shepherd more for home protection. We do use Malinois, we do use Dobermans and other breeds, but our favorite and kind of go-to is the German Shepherd, and I breed Malinois, so most of the time it's not quite what we're looking for our program.
And so you use the Malinois, I'm guessing primarily for French Ring, because that's how I met you. And I have to say, I learned a lot from training with you the short amount of time that we trained together. And I was incredibly impressed with your ability to move in a way to train that dog for protection work. And being in that bite suit, that is not easy. People see that and they're like, oh, you just have a suit on and the dog bites you. But there is so much to it. What got you involved with that training, and how did you get, in my opinion, you're one of the best protection decoys that I had the opportunity to train with. How did you get to that point to being so good at being able to read the dogs, know when to give them the bite, how to work on that grip, the little details that someone who's spectating may not be able or be aware of?
Yeah, definitely. I appreciate the kind words. So we typically, French Ring, Mondio Ring, those are kind of our main focus with our sport dogs and breeding program. As far as getting started in it, about 12, 13 years ago, I got into pet dogs and protection dogs actually at the same exact time. So I was living in Southern California, had an unruly dog, seeked out some trainers, was lucky enough to come across an awesome trainer by the name of Larry Hansen. Met with her. She was kind of a bully specialist, and I had a bully breed at the time. Helped me a lot with him as far as pet dog training, and then she introduced me to ring sport. I went out to her club, Scabber at the time, and then I was fortunate enough to train with her, Adrian Centeno, the whole kind of Southern California Scabber crew for a little bit. And then I moved to Arizona, did some work there with Chad Hunter for a while, learned a lot from him as well too. And then over the last several years, actually, I would say in the last 3 to 5 years has kind of been where I've really gained a lot more experience and gotten a lot better in the suit, and training the dogs has been going overseas to France. So I've been traveling to France for the last several years. Multiple times a year. I've spent several months out of the last couple of years in France training and learning from, in my opinion, one of the best French ring trainers in the world over there. He was my mentor for a while, so that was a really cool experience, and I got to learn a lot doing that.
Oh, that's amazing. What an awesome opportunity. And for people who are not aware of the different protection sports, at least the main ones in the United States is the French ring, Mondio ring, PSA, and Schutzhund. Now, French ring, in my opinion, I'm assuming you may agree, you probably will agree, but being a decoy in that sport is probably the most challenging and takes the most amount of discipline, physical fitness, understanding of the sport, being able to read the dogs and time it. So saying that you've gotten better in the past few years, and I haven't trained with you since I think 2016, 2015, and back then you were blowing me away at how much skill you had in that suit. So why is it that French ring decoys that are from France tend to have a higher skill set than some of the decoys here in the United States? What makes them so much better? At least, from my experience, they are really impressive to see what they can do out there.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, all the protection sports definitely have their things and difficulties and challenges in the suit. But like you said, it's being a French ring decoy is probably one of the hardest in the world as far as mentally, physically, and takes a toll on your body. But yeah, I mean, just going over there and the French decoys, the advantage that they have is they start really young is the first thing. Those guys are getting a suit, some of them 10 years old, 12 years old. I mean, it's incredible. Whereas I started when I was 20 years old. They have a lot more experience. They also have a lot more access to dogs. We have very few Ring 3, which is the highest level in French ring here in the United States dogs. It's getting better. We have a lot more now, but over there they have, thousands. Their big event for the year, their pre-selectifs, and their selectifs has, thousands of dogs. Their selectifs goes down to about 240 dogs, and then it goes down to, the 30 top in the country. So they just have a lot more access to work dogs. They have a lot more people with experience, and so they're able to really get, I would say double, triple the experience of us sometimes in the same amount of time, just with the amount of dogs and access they have to that sport.
So they're able to have more time in the suit, of course, fighting more dogs, as you said, which, yeah, that definitely makes sense. And for people that are interested in becoming more involved with protection training, I get messages all the time. People either want a protection dog or they want to learn how to train a protection dog or at least do some of the foundational training. What advice would you give them as far as what to seek out, what to look for, and what would be their best approach to learning how to do that?
Yeah, I mean, the first thing is just finding a mentor. There's obviously through the years as you get more experience, you'll find teams and mentors that you want to work with personally. But in the beginning, it's really just more about finding somebody to help you. You want to find the right person, obviously, but reaching out to people that you might know that have experience in this field. You can go on Google and look up North American Ring Sport Federation. That's the governing body for French ring in the United States. And they have information on there. You can contact local clubs. You can contact decoys, judges, the organization itself. For Mondio Ring, same thing, United States Mondio Ring Association. You can go to their website and look up the exact same. So I definitely look up and find your nearest club. I would definitely recommend people go to the sites and find a club rather than just look up people that are doing ring sport, because there's a lot of people that are doing ring sport throughout the country but might not be affiliated with the organization, so they might not have as much experience. Not saying that's always the case, but it's definitely a good start to find a local club or the nearest club to you to find somebody with some experience and reach out. And it's definitely a thing you got to put your time in. So going out and long hours and learning as much as you can, but that's definitely where I would start, is just looking up a local club.
And getting in that bite suit and sweating half the day away while you're working those dogs.
Yeah, for sure.
What was some of the things that you struggled with in the very beginning when you were learning? I mean, for me, it was getting comfortable in that suit and also getting past. I mean, you never seemed to have one of the issues that I had, which was I do have a bit of fear of the dogs, like the protection work. I was always afraid of possibly slipping and getting hit in the face. And of course, during trials, I mean, decoys get injured. That's why they have a backup decoy. So for me, it was getting past that fear. What were some of the struggles that you had to work through when you were first learning how to become a decoy? And maybe that will help other people who are also trying to become a decoy and get to your level.
Yeah, I mean, I would say I definitely had, I didn't have a fear in the beginning, but I would say early on in my career, I definitely got the fear initially, but I was able to get over it just because I got bit in the hand with one of my first trials I ever decoyed. I got my whole hand tore open. Since then it's happened probably one or two more times, and that was probably 5-6 years ago, but having those kind of situations definitely taught me to get over the fear a little bit. Before that, I would say I was a little cockier in the suit and didn't think that would happen. And then when it happened, I definitely learned to be a little more careful with where I put my hands and things like that. The biggest, I think my biggest issue as a decoy when I was learning was that I'm not really the most athletic person. So I'm obviously young and I'm fit and all that, but I'm not a athlete by any means. I wrestled in high school. I played basketball, but I was never the athlete. I don't run very fast. I don't run very far. So getting in the suit is people excel at it when they're athletes typically. So for me, the hardest part was how do I get better in the suit when I'm not an athlete? And for me, that came down to timing, reading the dogs, and learning how to be quicker in the suit, but not necessarily fast, exploding better, making sure my timing was better when I moved to catch the dogs, when I moved to esquive the dogs, which is, making them miss. And so, yeah, just kind of focusing on the timing and the quickness of it was really big for me because I definitely am by no means an actual athlete.
That's awesome. I love that. I mean, one of the things I do is I also train jujitsu, and sometimes the guys who are not as big and strong, they have to be more technical. And because of that, they're able to teach things that maybe some of the other guys are not able to teach. So I think that's probably something that has benefited you in your career in becoming a decoy and training these protection dogs. Now, someone who's interested in getting a protection dog, what is one of the first places that they can start in doing their research? So not training it themselves, but getting one for the family. What should they be looking for?
I think first and foremost, they have to kind of look at their lifestyle before they even look at getting a dog, and just make sure that, in theory, a protection dog sounds great, but it's a commitment, just like getting a normal dog and doing training with it. You have to make sure you have the time to exercise it. You have the finances to take care of the dog if things go wrong. Making sure that your lifestyle is going to fit having a dog. If you're very active, you might want a more active dog. If you have a kind of laid back lifestyle, you might want a dog that's a little more calm. So I think looking at that first and just making sure it's a good fit, having a protection dog in general. And then really it's just a matter of doing some research. And, there's obviously a lot of information on Google, good and bad, on YouTube as well too. So it's important for people to do some research, check out, when they look at a website or they look at a protection company. The most important thing I always tell people, when people contact us, whether they buy a dog from us or not, I always tell them, hey, make sure that you're researching the trainers, make sure that they have experience, they have credentials, they have, they've done either protection competitions or have, lifelong experience doing this and helping family members with their protection dogs. So, looking on Google and YouTube is definitely going to help them, but I think it's more so important that they dig in a little deeper and research the company and the actual trainers behind the company. It's, as it's pretty easy to pop up shop and have a website and have it look good and everything, but it's important for the trainers to have the experience and know what they're doing dealing with the real protection dogs. So I just urge everybody to take a look and make sure they do their research.
And that's a really good point. You made me think of two things. So one, their lifestyle. That's something that comes up often with service dogs as well. People think that, if I get a service dog, it's going to do all these things for me, but the door swings both ways. They have to be able to still take care of that dog, feed the dog, manage the training and the obedience. And the other thing that it made me think about was when somebody gets a protection trained dog, even if it's fully trained, it's top quality, 100%, the training's been done, it doesn't mean that the training's done, right? They have to continue it, they have to maintain it. They probably, if they're not in your area, then they would probably have to find a local protection trainer to maintain that training. Or do you provide additional resources for them so they can continue maintaining and working with the dog?
Yeah, we definitely do. We actually offer what we call like follow-up training with all of our clients. So we have clients, all over the world. I have a client in Santiago, Chile. I have clients in Florida. We're in California. We have a couple clients here. So we definitely travel to our clients and do follow-up training if they want. Obviously, it's a little more expensive just because of the fact that we have to fly there and take time out of our schedule and everything. So people are allowed to work with another local trainer if they have one to maintain training and things like that. We just give our advice and show them what we recommend. But we do offer that follow-up support. And yeah, you're right. I mean, it's definitely important that they, the dog, it's kind of like, buying a nice expensive car. It comes, ready to go and everything, but you have to learn how to drive it. And then on top of that, you've got to maintain it. You've got to do your oil changes. You've got to put the right gas in it. You have to, rotate your tires, all that stuff. So it's the same with the dog. They're going to get a fully trained dog ready to go out the gate, but there's going to be some follow-up training they're going to have to do and maintain and work with that dog. We provide phone and email support for our clients as well as the follow-up training, but they're definitely going to have to do some work after the fact for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And probably I would think joining a protection club would be the best way to continue and maintain that. And if that is the case, if somebody is getting a family protection dog from you, which sport would be the more ideal sport to help maintain the training?
Yeah, I mean, I would say sometimes, obviously, with protection dogs, there's a big difference between a sport dog and a protection dog. So I think sometimes, you want to be careful with saying, hey, yes, you can just take a protection dog to a sport dog club and it'll help maintain it. In the aspect of obedience and doing the actual bite work, protection work itself, yes, it will. But you want to make sure that you're working with somebody that understands the difference between a sport dog and a protection dog and the needs of the two different dogs. But I would say if you're going to go that route, I would say any of the sports probably would be okay, to be honest with you. It's really just finding somebody, a trainer from that club that's experienced in dealing with it. I will say I think protection sports, PSA, Schutzen, those kind of sports are a little bit more geared towards home protection style of training in dogs. French ring and Mondio ring definitely are more of the sport aspect. It's really a big battle between the dog and the decoy, and that can definitely help for home protection dogs. And I think somebody that runs those kind of clubs will be able to help them with the dog. I would say a little more precision in the obedience sometimes in Schutzen is nice for people to help with their protection dog because they sometimes have a higher level of obedience than your typical ring dog could. But honestly, I think any of them are good. PSA, for example, I don't personally do PSA, but I'm very, very familiar with it. And I think sometimes they have some cool scenarios and things that are a little bit more realistic and real life stuff that could practice with a home protection dog. But ultimately, all the sports are just sports. So it's really more important to find a trainer that knows the difference between sport and real protection and helps them work through those things.
And that's a good point. And how would you define the difference between a sport dog, a family protection dog, personal protection dog? What makes them different?
So the biggest factor is, and this is kind of, obviously a big discussion in our industry is, can a sport dog be a protection dog, vice versa? And the answer is yes and no. There's sport dogs out there that are just that, sport dogs. They will not bite for real in a real situation. They will not protect you in a real situation. But there's the flip side. There's a lot of sport dogs out there that are very, very real dogs that will protect you in situations. And so it's not so much the dog or the sport. There's no sport, in my opinion, that's real. PSA, Schutzen, French ring, Mondio ring, all these sports are sports. It doesn't mean there's not real dogs in them, that real protection dogs, but they're sports first and foremost. So in order for you to say that dog knows how to do actual protection work, you have to put them in those situations and work through that and train it. So I think, the biggest difference just being that is that there's, the sport is geared more towards, it's a points thing. It's the dogs are meant to be, scored, and they're trained a little bit differently than you would a home protection dog. A home protection dog is geared more towards serious situations, kidnappings, home invasions, sport work they're doing, just running up the field, bite the guy out, come back. And protection dogs are going to do that as well too, but a lot more scenario type training. I would say that's probably the biggest difference.
And so you're training all these different scenarios to get the dogs as generalized as possible to something happening. And so something that people ask, like I have this video on just teaching a deterrent. It doesn't actually teach the dog to bite. There's no aggression. It's just using a toy and getting the dog to bark. But people have asked, well, how is a dog going to know the difference between a real situation and a training scenario? And does the dog know the difference?
Yeah, absolutely. And with it, protection dogs, you have, in my opinion, you have like a wide variety of them in the sense of, like we talked earlier, you have home protection, family protection, estate protection. To give you an example, like a dog that's going to go live with a family member and they have 2-year-old kids, needs a much more social dog than my client in Santiago, Chile has a state protection dogs. He has a few dogs there that are meant to literally protect the property. Somebody comes on the property unannounced, they're going to get bit. And that's not the type of dog that you're going to want to put in a home, right? So there's definitely a big difference between certain types of dogs in everybody's situation. So the most important thing is fitting the dog to the owner. And like you said, sometimes some people just need a deterrent dog. They just want a dog that will bark on command at somebody, and they don't even want the dog to bite because it's obviously a big liability. So fitting each dog with each owner is definitely a big factor of it, and making sure that you're providing, if you need to give them a more serious dog because of their situation and their lifestyle, that's what you do. If they need a more family friendly dog and they just want, the appearance of a protection dog, that's possible as well too. It's really fitting that client with the specific dog and what their needs are. And if they have kids in the home, if they have other dogs, if they have cats, all those play a factor into what type of dog and also what type of training. So we customize all of our dogs as well too. So we have kind of different levels of protection dogs, and we have a lower level, and then we have our higher levels where we'll literally take a dog. If I have a client that calls me and says, hey, I want this dog, but I need this, and this with the dog specifically because of my lifestyle. I travel on a private jet, I'm a celebrity, whatever the case may be, we can customize the dog to do specific things and also train them for specific scenarios that we know are going to be possible that they're going to be put into.
And I'm assuming there's probably certain standards that you do on every dog, and then you just build on top of that. I'm assuming obedience is a big part of it. What's your obedience process with these protection dogs?
Yeah, obedience is definitely a huge one, and I would say it's one of the bigger factors. I mean, the protection work is definitely huge, but if they can't control this dog in public, if they can't even walk it down the road, there's no benefit to biting somebody or protecting them if they can't even get it under control to begin with. So the obedience is pretty extensive. We do full on and off leash obedience. Come when called, sit stays, down stays, heeling on and off leash right next to them, laying on their bed on command, all your typical pet stuff, but then we take it to a little bit higher level and we do it all off leash. We do it under severe distractions. These dogs go everywhere with us. They go to grocery stores, they go to, pet stores, they go to, if we travel, they come with us, they come in our home and sleep with us at night, hang out with my personal family and my kid, and go pretty much just about everywhere with us. If we go to lunch, they come out and eat lunch with us. If we go to dinner, they come eat dinner with us. So they're getting used to going pretty much everywhere that somebody could possibly take them for their situation. And so the obedience is definitely one of the biggest factors for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree more. And with the protection training, how do you know when to start working the dog in protection, whether it's a puppy, adolescent, older? How are you working to teach the dog to bite, when to bite, where to bite, all these little things that are very curious subjects for people that don't know anything about protection work?
Yeah, so like we talked about earlier, we definitely can start them as puppies, and we obviously with puppies, everything is just prey work. It's getting them used to chasing a rag and learning how to kind of bite things, and then we start to channel it as they get older. We typically, I would say, when they get a little bit older, about 8 months to a year is when we get a little more serious with the protection work, and we start determining, is this dog capable of doing real life type protection stuff? And then we start layering in some more defensive work, some scenarios, things like that. First and foremost, like every dog started typically when they're young, just like prey work, puppy with a rag and just kind of testing their ability to bite. And then it's, as they get older, it's the trainer's job to kind of mold them into a protection dog and switch from prey to more real life situations, more defense sometimes. But that's a difficult thing. Some trainers sometimes go a little too far with defensive protection stuff, and sometimes go a little too far with prey, and it's an important thing to balance the two, and that's definitely an art that's always constantly ongoing and perfecting and how to do that. But typically I would say 8 months to a year is kind of where we see the dogs start to come alive a little bit more, and where we're going to start to more evaluate them and determine what route we're going to go with them, if they're going to continue to be in our program, if they're going to be a good fit for certain clients. And then again, like I said, it's just a matter of the client and an individual dog. If they have a certain dog that they want and they want certain things done with it, then we have to make sure that dog that we have can do it. And if it can't, we have to get a different one and make sure that we're fulfilling kind of the client's needs and expectations within the protection work as well as the obedience.
That's awesome. And when you are transitioning the puppy or the adolescent, the younger dog, from tugs and toys and things like that, how do you know when to transition the dog to a bite suit? I'm assuming you use a bite suit for the protection dogs, or do you use a lot of sleeve work?
Yeah, we do just about everything. So hidden sleeves, we'll do actual sleeves, we'll do suits, muzzle fighting, just about anything that we feel we need to do for that dog, and again, that client situation. So we definitely use kind of all of them. The time that we determine that we're going to transition them from, like, let's say a puppy sleeve or a rag to an actual, suit or sleeve is going to be when we see that the dog has a very good grip. So they're biting full on the sleeve or the puppy sleeve and things, and that they're very confident about it. We don't want a dog to go to a suit or a like an IPO style sleeve or something and be nervous or not feel like they're in control of that situation. So we're going to make sure they're confident and also that they have a really nice grip. Obviously in protection work, the grip doesn't necessarily matter as much as like a sport dog where they're going to maybe grade the grip or something. But for me, it shows confidence in the dog, and we like to see that they have nice big grips. So that's definitely something that we're going to look for before we transition them to a suit, because the suit is typically it's like less, it's not as thick. It doesn't feel as good a lot of times for the puppies. So they're not going to bite it as well as they would like a puppy, thick sleeve.
So you're really making sure that you have the foundation that's strong, the dog's confident, and then you go to the bite suit. If you go to the bite suit and you notice there's issues, you just go back a step and continue to work the grip and work the confidence and so on.
Yeah, absolutely. Unless there's some situations where, we've had dogs that might need like a different type of suit, like they might need a jute suit, something that they can sink their teeth into a little bit better. We might have dogs that do need a little bit of bungee work, or they just need some more frustration or something. So if we feel that we can work through it on the suit and they're feeling good about it and they're confident, we'll do it. But a lot of times, we're just going to take a step back and rebuild the dog a little bit and then come back to the suit. It's not as important to go to the suit fast. It's just a matter of making sure the dog's ready for that when it's time.
And if this is going to be a sport question, and it's something that I've had to deal with in the past. If you have a dog that is having issues with something like, let's say, the pistol attack, the dog's afraid of the gunfire, or in PSA, the dog might be afraid of a bottle curtain or something like that the decoys are using. What's your best approach to getting the dog to work past that fear or that discomfort to where the dog is able to do that part of the training? So, for example, with my dog, first time she became afraid of the gunfire and she went off the bite. What would be your best approach to fixing an issue like that?
So with anything that the dog has issues with in sport work, the biggest thing is just kind of recreating a different association with what they're having an issue with and making them get comfortable with it. I will say, I do it a little bit differently than some people in the sense of I do believe that dogs have to learn to work through stress a little bit to an extent. And so I think that, sometimes with like the gun, for example, or sometimes in sport work, they have an issue with the baton, the bamboo stick, the clatter stick. And I kind of take the approach of, yes, we're going to back up. We're going to create some good sensations with it and make sure that the dog can learn how to counter it, properly. But I definitely don't dance around it too much. I mean, in the sense of I'm going to use that object or whatever it is, the gunfire or the stick, and I'm going to teach the dog how to deal with that in a way that they come out confident about it. Especially with sport work, a lot of puppies, sometimes people will look at a puppy and it looks a little bit more sensitive, might have, they say it might have a, what we call a stick issue, an issue with the clatter stick or a gun issue. And they might, but a lot of times when they see that when they're puppies, they kind of like stop using those things altogether and in fear that they're going to make it worse. And they, I guess in layman's terms, baby the dog a little bit. And then, as the dog gets older, it learns that it can be kind of more sensitive in a baby in those situations. And it never learns how to be what we consider like a warrior. And in ring sport, you need a warrior. So you have to teach the dog that even if it's sensitive, it has to learn how to overcome that. So we definitely create good associations with it, but I would say we do it in ways, and obviously it's really difficult to explain. There's lots of different methods we can use and things like that. But, teaching them, the gunfire is a good example. Typically with gunfire, a lot of times when people are teaching it, the first time they do it is they have somebody off to the side and they're shooting the gun as a puppy's running in for the bite. And I do that a little differently. I actually have the decoy with the gun and the decoy shooting the gun as the dog's being dragged in, and the decoy's running away in prey and, shaking a stick or whatever that dog associates as fun for that protection work. And so they're getting used to seeing that person that they love and is fun is the one doing that gunfire, and it's not causing them harm. Whereas a lot of times when you're sending a puppy to do some protection work or sport work, and somebody off the sidelines is shooting a gun, the puppy's going to go, "Oh, what's that?" And they're going to look away, and they're going to be weirded out because something from the sidelines is going off and they don't know what it is. So I prefer it comes from the decoy, but it comes in a way that the puppy is, or the young dog is successful in that situation. And that's typically how I deal with like a gunfire problem is I would have the decoy use it and more in prey and running away agitation and make it a fun experience. And then it would slowly close the gap and make it closer and closer as the dog comes in, and then eventually on the bite and things like that.
I love that you said that, having the decoy run away, because of course in that exercise, they're usually just standing there as the dog comes in, but adding that factor of them running away, I can totally see how that would increase the dog's confidence, and then associated with like, oh, even though I hear that loud gunfire, they're still running away. I'm the one in charge of this situation. Absolutely love that. So we're actually out of time. I really appreciate you taking the time to come down and talk to us about protection training. For people that are interested in learning more or wanting to reach out to possibly get a protection dog, how can they get a hold of you? And I know you also do pet training as well, right?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Well, first and foremost, thanks for having me. It was a blast. So for the protection dogs, you can check out our website. It's prestigeprotectiondogs.com. We're also on Instagram at Prestige Protection Dogs. We just started a YouTube channel as well too. Same thing, Prestige Protection Dogs, and we're going to be uploading a lot more content on there soon as well. For the pet side of things, I do own a pet obedience dog training company. We're in multiple states throughout the country, California being our biggest, but you can find us at prestigecanine.com, and that's K9.com. We're also on Instagram as well too, and YouTube.
Excellent. Thank you so much. I'm going to make sure that I put all that information in the description of the video. You are definitely a trainer. I highly recommend to anybody who wants to learn protection training, get a protection dog, or sharpen the obedience that they currently have. So excellent resource. Thank you again. I really appreciate it. Thanks everyone for watching, and we'll make sure we see you on the next episode.
Later. Thanks, man.